Hi, I'm David Ringstrom, a CPA in Atlanta, and welcome to our presentation on ways to minimize errors within our spreadsheets. Many times we build spreadsheets that are suitable for our initial purpose, but then some time goes by and we try to adapt it to other needs, or maybe we need to make other changes to it or ask to make changes to it, and over time the spreadsheet becomes increasingly brittle. So during our time together, during this presentation, we're going to be looking at ways that we can minimize the risk of those errors in our spreadsheets, improve the integrity of the spreadsheets, and also build in resilience so that we can make those subtle changes on the fly or upon request. Rest assured that the spreadsheet will adapt rather than break, and we won't have to go track down errors or worry that we might have introduced an error into our spreadsheet. One thing I do want to point out for those of you using Excel 2007, I sometimes get asked about the little button in the corner. It's called the Office button, and that is your equivalent of a file menu. So if I'm interacting with the file menu, you see me do something that involves the file menu. In Excel 2007, you will use that particular button there in place of a file menu. Everything else should look and feel the same. Most of my material is going to apply equally to all 4 versions of Excel. If there are anything that have included that only relates to, let's say, Excel 2013 and later, then I'll make sure to point that out so that you're not looking for something that can't be done in those older versions of Excel. The next version of Excel has been announced. It is on the horizon. It's going to be Excel 2019, and it's going to be released this fall. One thing I learned about Excel 2019 is Microsoft is going to require us to have Windows 10 on our computers if we wish to use Excel 2019. In any case, you will see me present everything at least twice. First, walk you through it on the PowerPoint slides, which are very detailed and have numbered steps. If you've not downloaded those yet, those are in the handout section of the GoToWebinar panel there. You'll also find there the example workbook that has most of the examples I'll be teaching from. Within that example workbook is a related articles tab that has links to articles that relate to today's material. Also, you will have access for 5 business days to the recording of today's presentation, or you may have opted for the enhanced price that gives you extended access to the recording, but that also gives you ways to go back and review things that we've covered today. In short, I do try to leave you with a lot of takeaways from choosing one of my presentations. Let's first look at a subtlety in Excel, and a lot of us struggle in Excel because of the nuances can really make or break our experience in Excel. And so one common thing that makes Excel much harder to use comes down to when we have lists and we put titles at the top of those columns there. One of the worst things that we can do in Excel is to take those titles and have them span multiple rows. Excel, when we have a list, we aren't taught when we first learn Excel is that there's a certain discipline that if we apply that discipline, we'll have a dramatically better experience. And that discipline is to treat our list in Excel more like tables within a database. And so in a table in a database, you may not have ever worked directly with a database, but behind the scenes, tables look much like spreadsheets, but there is a list of headings at the top and they're in a single row. And so when we apply that same approach to our spreadsheets, then we'll have a dramatically better experience in Excel because many features, such as simple things like sorting, are predicated on us having a single row of titles at the top of our spreadsheet. When we take those titles and span them across multiple rows, then suddenly we're making features malfunction in Excel. And also, part of our experience is if we need to edit those headings, we have to then go and touch multiple cells. We can't just go in one cell and make our edit. We have to go sometimes from cell to cell over and over to edit those headings if we need to change them. So what we'll see is that instead of putting them across multiple headings, we want to keep those headings in a single cell. That will then improve the integrity of pivot tables, sorting, filtering. Most of the features on the data menu in particular benefit from us having a single set of headings in that first row. So we can see here that if I did have a worksheet where I had headings spanning 3 different rows, if I went to sort that data, if I go to the data menu and perhaps I sort it in descending order alphabetically, so step 1, I go to the data menu. Step 2, I click the descending order button. we see then a side effect of not following that expectation of a single row of headings. That means Excel treats the whole thing as not having any headings, and so my headings then get sifted into my data, which then means I have to go back and straighten it out later. And so that can be part of what I like to term the death by 1,000 cuts in experience in Excel, where all these little subtle things go wrong, and none of them are enough to ruin your day, but they kind of grind away at our energy level and cause frustration and just kind of slow us down in our work. So here at the list at the top, let's try sorting this, and then we'll contrast it with the list at the bottom where the headings are in a single row. So I'll simply go to the data menu. Perhaps I'll go and sort it in descending order based on this year's sales. So we'll go to the data menu. We'll click the sort largest to smallest button. And when I do so, this case, it actually kept the headings there. Let me go back. I think it's because I'm in a number there. Let's try using column A here. Notice that what makes it all surreal is that depending on what type of data is in that column. So here, if I'm in a number column, in that case, Excel does sort the numbers correctly. Or actually, it depends what I'm doing here. Now it moved the headings down to the bottom. So you can have instances where you can kind of get away with the headings being in the wrong place. But if we start over here, so now we're back to the original part. So if I do go and I want to sort these numbers, let's say largest to smallest, let's kind of compromise the order a little bit here. And we click that. The numbers sorted, but then also notice that the headings kind of goofed up as well. They're still in the same place, but they're now in the wrong order. So these are things, just little subtle things, or when we go to create pivot tables and other features, they won't function at the way we expect because those headings are across multiple rows. So instead, we want to have those headings in a single column, and then to make that work, sometimes they're longer than we can see in a single cell. Step 2 shows we're going to select those titles there for our column. And then step 3, on the home menu, we can choose wrap text. So then we get to have our cake and eat it too. We have a title that spans multiple rows, but it's still only within a single cell. Notice that we can choose to center it within that column there. And so then we have our best practice for our titles. We can then sort the data cleanly. We can go back to the data menu. We can choose largest to smallest or alphabetical, whichever we want to sort on. It won't take our titles and then sift them into the midst of our data. So down here, we're going to try sorting this in a largest to smallest order. So in fact, let me undo these just so we can kind of see that process there. We'll clear all the formatting. So what I've done here is taken the headings and just typed them in a single cell there. And so once I've typed them in that single cell, we can then go on the home menu. The command we're looking for is called wrap text. It's in the alignment section. So we click there and notice that it makes the row taller because everything is then wrapped. If I then want to center it to kind of get a better aesthetic here, I can just come along and select these cells and then choose to center it within the worksheet cell, perhaps make it bold and underlined. And once I've carried out those actions here, if we then go and choose to sort, if I sort it in descending order, notice I don't have to worry about selecting the data or anything, that the headings will always stay at the top because they are within that single row there. Another subtlety that can derail us is when we have formulas that we kind of daisy chain together. So let's say that we have a set of payments that we're trying to calculate, and we have maybe multiple scenarios, maybe different loan amounts, for instance. So we write our formulas in column B, and then I'm going to copy the formula across in two different fashions. So in cell C1 there, we see that I'm going to put equals B1 and then drag that to the right so that those formulas become equals C1 equals D1. Now, what that's setting up is a set of indirect references. So my original input is in cell B1, but I'm only going to refer to it directly in column C. So column C is going to refer directly to my original input, but then D and E are going to kind of daisy chain off of column C. And that's how we make our spreadsheets brittle. Notice on the second row for the term, I'm going to create a direct reference. I'm going to put dollar signs in front of the column letter and the row number so that it's always referring back to cell B2. And that's the gold standard that we want in our spreadsheets, because if we leave these indirect references in, if at some point I do such as what I'm doing in step 1 there, I right click on column C and then I delete it, notice that on row 1 I'll end up with a bunch of broken references because I'll have taken a link out of the chain there, causes the whole chain to collapse. Contrasting that with row 2 where we had direct references in each case, and that causes the spreadsheet, doesn't matter I took out a column because they still maintain their direct references back to the original input cell.